Thank you all for being here today. It gives me immense pleasure and incomparable joy to open the second day of our international conference at the Department of English at the University, at the Faculty of Arts and Humanities in Berlin, entitled Revisiting Hybridity. So before starting, allow me to express my heartfelt gratitude and thanks to all the speakers in this conference, also to the audience for showing up early today and being committed to attending this conference. Now, yesterday we've had the chance to have 4 different plenary speeches by Professors Abdel bin Baya, who talked about reading after monolingualism on the other, or hybrid aporias in transcriptural writing. Followed by that, Professor Munir Triki explored the entanglements of pragmatic license. After that, Professor Attila Salemi ended the morning session with a speech entitled The Tentacles of Hybridity, Systemic Functional Perspectives on Hybridity in Text and Context. So in the afternoon session, Professor Wizi Hayek opened the session with hybridity in the medieval manuscript matrix. Today, I would like to welcome Professor Sadok Bouhlila, who will give us a speech entitled Fabulation, Hybridity, and Post-Humanism in the Wars Last Time and the English Patient. Followed by that, we will have Professors Leonard Verhafstad's talk on rethinking the civilization history nexus, challenges, and perspectives. So before starting, allow me to give you a brief introduction and a brief bio of the 2 speakers of today's first session. So Professor Sadok Bouhlila, to my left, is a professor of English literature at the Faculty of Letters, Arts, and Humanities at the University of Manila. His main areas of interest include modern fiction, literary theory, utopian and dystopian studies, science fiction, and post-humanism. He published Modern Dystopian Fiction, Genesis Typology, Evaluation in 1919, and co-edited a book entitled Utopias in 2010, and another entitled Dynamics of Resistance and Discontent in 2021. So Professor Bouhlila is also a prolific writer with a variety of articles on different topics, including Orwellian studies, science fiction, Derrida, and cultural studies. And the list is long, so I'm not going to read everything. Just to let you know that he is expecting to publish really soon, inshallah, a forthcoming publication including a reappraisal of Orwell's main works in the light of the Arab Spring, and a book entitled, a book co-authored with Professor Abdel bin Baya on modern dystopia in today's world. So Professor Bouhlila will give a speech entitled Fabulation, Hybridity, and Post-Humanism in the Wars Last Time and the English Patient. Without any further ado, please join me in welcoming Professor Sadok Bouhlila. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Judith, for your presentation. It gives me great pleasure to be here. I arrived yesterday and the magic is still operating. So, thank you for being here. I will read, for reasons of time, have them straight up. I will avoid the digressions and read from my paper. Quite disciplined today. Fabulation, hybridity, and post-humanism in Ondaatje's The English Patient and Rushdie's The Moors Last Time. Of course, within 30 minutes, it is difficult to evoke all the aspects of these seminal notions, but I will sketch out some of them, especially if the room are people who are interested in the work of Rushdie, especially The Moors Last Sigh and The English Patient, of course, which is one of Ondaatje's major novels, and a film also. But anyway, I'll start by saying that spatial-temporal indeterminacies are often at the core of what is commonly referred to in modern cultural production as post-colonial fictions. Even if it is difficult not to perceive in some of them distinct postmodern features too. So post-colonialism, postmodernism, there's an intersection between them. Rushdie's work and Ondaatje's work are, of course, characteristic of this. Both novels offer the readers a decentered space, fragmented narratives, and worldly characters that seem to straddle over time and space in their frenetic pursuits. Interestingly, one of Rushdie's main critics, Schroeder, argues that since the time of its Mediterranean inception, Western philosophy has essentially presented itself as a philosophy of the center. This notion, questioned in various degrees by European thinkers from Hegel to Derrida, concerns itself the most profoundly with the concept of spatiality. Unquote. This is a quotation from Schroeder. Space, multi-space. The aim of my paper is to show how both Ondaatje and Rushdie manage in their respective fictions to subvert the assumptions of centeredness by resorting to a counter-movement from the periphery to the center, traditional one. This is especially true of Rushdie's novel, The Moor's Last Sigh, where Bombay is brought to Spain at the end. Ironically, the setting in both novels is the Mediterranean, Italy and North Africa for Ondaatje's characters, and Muslim, Jewish, and Christian Spain for Rushdie's story, in Rushdie's story. However, we will contend that time and space allow both writers to explore in heteroglossic fashion how ancient traditional cultures were engulfed by the encounter with the colonial hegemonic other. Both novels can be seen as palimpsest histories, opposing a monolithic history with a myriad of visions, where difference is fully asserted and essentialism kept at bay. Sorry. It is my contention in this paper that even if each of the two novels resorts to different narrative techniques and mythopoetic strategies, both novels do present the reader with a fuller, alternative vision of history, one that is neither idealistically utopian nor deterministically brutal, but more humane. If from time immemorial cartography and mapping have been one of the fundamental concerns of colonialism, it is Ondaatje's fictional prowess to have transformed a major historical novel, the preparation for the North Africa campaign during World War II, into a work of fiction that does concern itself with post-colonial space, but also that subverts the latter in Deleuzian fashion by deterritorializing the mechanisms of power generative of contemporary history. The result is that the historical perspective is relegated to the background as the power of the fabula relativizes the importance of history. A palimpsest history, the novel, in typical postmodern fashion, demonstrates the power of fragmentation of time, space, and body. It does so by subverting both geography and history, and by situating most of the action in the desert, a space where borders are insignificant indeed. If the novel resorts to a heavy use of map charts and other geographical details, the reader soon discovers that it is about another kind of mapping, more akin to Frederick Jameson's terminology. Especially, I'm relating here to the notion of cognitive mapping. by which he meant an alternative utopian space intended to provide some bearings to the alienated modern urban subject in an otherwise hostile world brought about by international migrations of capital and sweeping globalism. In the English Patient, the utopian impulse is clearly expressed by the agonizing English patient, when he says, quote, "All I desired was to walk on such an earth that had no maps," end quotation. This is early in the book. Thus, in the novel, cartography and mapping are used in subversive fashion to display, as it were, the impermanence of things. It becomes a way of criticizing the colonial enterprise as such. The ends of the earth are never the points on a map that the colonists push against, enlarging their sphere of influence. On one side, the servant and the slaves and tides of power and correspondence with the National Geographic Society. On the other, the first step by a white man across a great river, the first sight by a white eye, the first step, the first sight by a white eye of a mountain that has been there forever. Ondaatje's utopian space is the desert. The desert is a place where identity and boundaries are effaced. The book is also a hymn to the desert, people. An acknowledgement of a culture whose resilience is the condition of survival. Far from being a mere anthropological account of the desert people in its moors, it shows the desert as a living space, a living place, but also as a place which profoundly transforms the people in the story, as when Maddox returns to England and shoots himself in the heart after hearing the priest's jingoistic sermon in favor of war. His suicide is dramatically followed by desert silence. A little later we are told, quote, "Yes, Maddox was a man who died because of nations," end of quotation. It is also in the desert that Herodotus, Greek historian, that Herodotus' book entitled Histories is justified, as it provides a novel not only with an organizing principle against the chaos engendered by war, but also as a kind of talismanic vision, wisdom. We have already said that the novel could very well be read as a palimpsest history, as it does provide the reader with an archaeology of history, with its learned references not only to the people of the desert, but also to Herodotus and Milton. Again, it is my contention that the book, perhaps more soberly, does also posit a more revolutionary path in its deteriorized poetics and lines of flight, to borrow from the terminology of the French philosopher again. The English Patient provides us with a way of looking at the world differently by showing us how hybridity operates not only as an ontological category, but also in the gaze of others. The fact of moving from desert charts to bodily maps where wrinkles, scars, and burns take the place of oasis cities, wadis, and jebels, can indeed have a humanizing effect on the reader. However, the flimsy, because fictional awareness of bridging space and time should not be overvalued in a world where frontiers and visas represent an impediment to free travel for the majority of us, a world where goods and cultural products have greater mobility than the people themselves. One such irony befalls the novel, as such, turned into one such irony befalls the novel itself, turned into an award-winning film, shot in Tunisia for the greatest part,